Hey everybody, it's Kneecap here, and in this video I'm going to be talking about the 9.2 announcement video slash 9.2 articles that came out alongside those as well. There was a lot to talk about, but nothing like super major was revealed. So this video is going to be kind of like a compilation of different things that interested me that we learned. And maybe I'll get into more specifics later, but there wasn't a ton of specifics released. So, number one thing I think that we learned is that 9.2 is going to be the last raid tier of the expansion. They didn't go out and say it's going to be the last patch necessarily, which just means, I think basically means that if they need to buy more time, maybe they have thoughts of like putting in like a storyline patch that maybe sets up 10.0, for example. But I think they said it's the last raid tier and stuff like that. So this will be the last raid of the expansion. They said that it's always been planned. Maybe, maybe not. I don't blame anybody for not believing them when they say that, but I would say there is a chance that it's always been the plan, just because of the way it started out, basically. So, like when they're designing Shadowlands during the work from home with the pandemic and stuff, it's definitely possible that they thought about having this be a less patch expansion, but who knows? That's neither here nor there, though. It's not super important. So we learned that. We learned that we're going to be going to a new place, a new zone. A lot of people have kind of memed on it a little bit because the developers were talking about how new and different it is than any other zone. And it does have a lot of similarities with Nagrand, frankly. A different take on it for sure. But Nagrand is one of the most beloved zones, like original Nagrand. And so it is what it is, I guess. I do think a lot of people also memed on the walking on water thing, but I get what they're trying to do there, and it's like this idea that like in this zone, what we might think as like our atmosphere on Earth or whatever, being like the outer edge until you're like in space, until you're like in a different realm or whatever. They're just basically doing that with water, and that's like kind of the message I felt they're trying to go with there. And I completely understand why it's being memed on, frankly, but I did kind of get what they were trying to say there, and they did mention it a little bit, but like there's a complete other ecosystem underneath this water, and it's like another realm or whatever, and that's kind of what they're trying to give off, and I get that, but yeah, obviously, and the type of players commenting on it too aren't necessarily ones that care about those kind of things. A lot of like the top creators or top personalities don't really care about those kind of things. So I totally understand why that would get kind of ripped on. Tier sets are coming back. We kind of knew this was coming, as they kept saying it was going to come. And I think Ian even said in 9.2. So we're going to be reintroduced to tier sets, and it's kind of interesting how they're going to work. So you can still get them from Raid. You can also get this currency from Mythic Plus and Rated PvP to kind of make a tier set. That way anybody playing can get the tier set. I guess you can also get the currency from doing other things like open world things. So even the most casual player can get their tier set up to a certain item level. I'm sure it's capped. And I believe I read something where you'll be able to like turn an item into a tier item. And I believe this is so with legendaries and stuff, so it doesn't conflict with a certain slot. I believe you'll be able to turn anything that's not like a ring or a necklace or a weapon probably into a tier set piece, which is actually really helpful. And you can kind of choose what your tier set is. And obviously if you get a drop, you can probably just wear that piece, wherever you want it to be or wherever it is slotted on. But other than that, you can kind of turn one into one later on as it goes on, so you can optimize your gear, best in slot, all that kind of stuff. So that's all good. Talzavesh is being split into 2 dungeons. I'm actually kind of looking forward to this because I didn't run Talzavesh very much. I think I only ran it twice. So it was a really good dungeon. But when they do these mega dungeons, they either need to make them Mythic Plus right away or make the gear more worth farming there or whatever, or have like a hard mode that you can activate and farm. I mean, there is a hard mode, but have the hard mode be more activatable and less secretive, and make it so you could farm gear there and make it legitimately hard 5-man content to do, to where you can maybe farm somewhere between like heroic and mythic raid level gear, or maybe even the first bosses of mythic eye level gear. So I would like to see that in the future, but we are getting them coming to Mythic Plus, like an upper lower type thing like Karazhan or Mechagon. Same thing. So people get to do that. It's no new dungeons, which is disappointing, but understandable to some degree, especially since this is a kind of a short expansion content-wise, not time-wise. But it's understandable, but I would like to see more dungeons in the future. I'll put it that way. So we had that. The tier sets don't look great based on the artwork that they put out. Obviously, we get different colors and combination of colors and effects based on normal, heroic, mythic, and stuff like that. So I think there's potential with them. I really just don't. So I'm a paladin. I have paladin bias. I really just don't like and this is nothing socially or politically or anything like that. Just me as a character when I'm playing a paladin, even if I'm a female paladin, frankly, like I don't like. There's no bias in this sense of it. I just don't want to wear a skirt as a paladin. Like it's just weird. I don't want to. It's not like a paladin is like a warrior who uses the light, right? Even a holy paladin, they're melee paladins. It's like it just seems weird that they always try to do that. Not always, but I thought we got away from that a little bit, and they're going back to it. So I'm not a huge fan of that. Like I said, the artwork doesn't look great that they released. I don't know if it was like low res or just not, not finished product, which is also completely possible since it's still a few months off. So we'll see how they look. But generally, what's going to matter more is if the effects are cool and if people like the effects. That's what it's really going to be judged by overall. We did not get a patch date. I would assume it's either going to be late February or early March. It's what I've been saying. I've been generally correct with this kind of stuff just because it is a bit predictable. If you listen to, like I said, like the big personality people, they're mostly going to meme and, say whatever's funny for, the chat or whoever to kind of laugh along with them. But if you're trying to be correct, it's actually pretty predictable when these patches will be. So I would say late February, early March is likely for when the patches. I guess late March, technically. I know they pushed a book back to like March 22nd. That kind of coincides with stuff. So perhaps that could have some kind of play on it. But I would still, as of now, I would just stick with my guess of late February, early March until I see something otherwise. But no, nothing official by any means. One thing, and I'll probably spend a little bit of time on this and then probably just wrap up the video. A lot of the things interested me, as you can see. Two more things. Let's do one more quick one. They are getting rid of Renown for this patch, so you will not be grinding any more Renown. There's a new system, of course. There's always a system, and I'm fine with that, but there's a new system in the new zone, and it's like a deciphering language system to kind of learn this first ones type language. And unlocking that will, do the kind of same things as Renown. It'll probably increase your power a little bit, unlock cool items, maybe a mount, stuff like that. And it also unlocks like a forge where you can do this stuff with your tier sets that I was talking about, like forge them into things. If you're getting them from Mythic Plus, forge them in general. So you'll be able to do that with this new thing. And it is another system, and it's kind of taking the place of Archivist Codex stuff. There's obviously more you can do with it. It has its own UI and stuff like that. So there is more you can do with this system than Archivist Codex, and hopefully so then it won't hopefully be as boring as Archivist Codex. But at least you don't have to do this and Renown, which was the case in 9.1, where you had to farm your Archivist Codex as fast as you could. If you're like a raider, and then also do your Renown as well, coinciding with it. And there's no changes to soul binds, but they are doing probably another way to upgrade conduits, I'm assuming, similar to how we have been doing, except for it'll be with this new place, and so it'll be like a new currency and stuff like that. And Torghast, you would not need to do Torghast anymore for your legendaries. Probably for the base item you still would, but if you already have them upgraded to like rank 6, you shouldn't have to do any more Torghast from my understanding, which is going to be really good for some people at least. I wish they obviously, a lot of people are saying this, but I wish they would have done more with Torghast and made it more fun, especially that side wing thing where you could get them out. Like if they could have just kept expanding on that would have been cool, but it is what it is. Kind of a failure, frankly. I will say that. So the last thing I'm going to talk about and spend a little bit of time on actually is this double legendary. There's been a little bit of debate on it. This is something I've been hyped for. And I've said this earlier in the video, but I do have a paladin bias and a melee bias because I main a rep paladin, right? And I will openly admit that bias. And so, take it for what it's worth. But I'm super excited about this. Ret does have a good Covenant Legendary with Kyrian, with Divine Resonance, and it has some cool interactions with Magistrate's Judgment, and then even not interaction, but the way it affects Final Verdict, putting it into your execution sentence, will be good as well for straight single target. So I think there's some good possibilities that happen there once those can get simulated and see how those work together. But none of the Ret Paladin legendaries are like, top notch. It's not like Ravenous Frenzy or something like that for Venthyr Boomkin. So, even though I am biased, it's not like I'm going to be gaining incredible power from this or anything like that. What I do understand is that some, classes don't have a good Covenant Legendary, and they have like multiple really good non-Covenant Legendaries. So like, well, let me use these two instead. So I think what we're really going to see here is a balancing of legendaries and a balancing of covenants that we haven't seen yet because people weren't allowed to switch. But now that you're allowed to switch freely, I think that they've probably been working on some of these changes for a while, and we'll see some legendaries get changed. We'll see some Covenant legendaries get changed, and we may even see some Covenant ability tuning, which we haven't really seen much of. Convoke the Spirits is one that comes to mind that was changed, but I think we'll see some tuning as well, again, that we haven't seen too much of. And I think that's kind of how it'll work out, in that I think it'll actually make the game better. People are worried about it because of as it currently stands, right? So if you play Kyrian Ret and you like Kyrian Ret, you're fine with this change. It's going to make you stronger. You're not going to have to change nothing. It doesn't hurt you in any way. But if you play some other class and spec, you might be like, well, I'm gaining like 1% power and everyone else is gaining 6% power. So that kind of sucks. It feels like a nerf to me. And, like I said, I think that they will just kind of, especially the Covenant legendaries, I think they'll try to balance them a little bit. I think ones like Ret might not see a lot of balancing because I think it's just kind of going to work out. It is a bit disappointing if you were hoping to play another Covenant. I know my Venthyr Ret sim is very close to my Kyrian Ret sim, in this patch now at the end. It's very close to it, so with some different kind of tuning and some different things, maybe I could have played a different Covenant in the next X-Pack. They also have done some slight balancing to Ret stuff already to try to make the other Covenants more attractive. So maybe they do that with the legendaries. I doubt it'll be Venthyr, because then Holy Pally have their whole issue with Venthyr and their Ashen Hollow, and it's for all Paladin, the Covenant legendary, not just a specific spec. So that creates other issues as well. So, like I said, I think some classes it'll just be fine and kind of work out. Some classes it might be a little bit annoying, but I do believe that they'll do some balancing to it to make it less annoying to you. And probably the best way I've seen this framed, and the most reasonable way I've seen this framed, is it's not that you're wearing two legendaries. It's just that whatever Covenant you're in now just has another passive bonus, essentially. Now, it does lock a gear slot, so it's not, passive, I guess. You do have to equip something. But depending on what Covenant in, you just get this extra ability, and then you get to wear a legendary on top of it. And so most of the Covenant abilities are just affecting or Covenant legendaries are just affecting your Covenant ability. So it's like basically that your Covenant ability is buffed for 9.2 in some way. And then you get to wear your normal legendary on top of it. So that's really what it is. I think that's the best way to frame it, and to make people a little bit less worried about it. So for that, you just want to choose, so if you're a class that doesn't have the greatest Covenant legendaries, you can it's either going to be you choose whatever one has the best Covenant legendary and play that one. Or you see maybe there's a different kind of interaction between two legendaries, and that ends up being higher, and you can play that. Or maybe it'll end up being close with multiple, and you can play multiple Covenants depending on the fight or depending on what kind of content you're doing, because now we can change. So I think overall it's a good thing. And I think the people that are freaking out about it are just biased in their own ways, and are a little bit less willing to admit their bias that I admitted mine to earlier. So that's it for this video. Hopefully can do more on some specific things about the 9.2 as we learn more information. As always, I do ask you, please subscribe to the channel. It helps me out so much. And other than that, everybody, have a good one.